year, 2024 makes it the 161st birth anniversary of one of the greatest visionaries the world has ever seen, Henry Royce. Since its invention until now, his car, Rolls-Royce, has always been associated with luxury. For many people, if you have never ridden in a Rolls-Royce, then you might not be as opulent as you might like to think. This is all thanks to Henry Royce, the co-founder of the world's most quality and elegant vehicle, Rolls-Royce. What is interesting is that this is not at all an attempt to whitewash a poor invention as a good one. Rolls-Royce has always performed up to the standard because the original inventor, Henry Royce, held dear a mantra that says, whatever is worth doing, no matter how humble, should be done well. Another popular quote that guided Royce was strive for perfection in all that you do. Take the best that exists and make it better. So how did Royce come about this brilliant invention? Was he born with a silver spoon and had access to the finest of vehicles to be inspired? Let's find out. Henry was born in 1863 into a family of 7. He was the last of 5 children, but in case you are thinking the many children were a testament to how rich the Royce family were, then you're grossly mistaken. To say Royce was born in abject poverty would be putting it mildly. His father was a poor miner whose only take-home was a paltry wage that could barely feed the children. Since feeding was a luxury for the Royce family, it was therefore not surprising that going to school was a tall order for their children. Perhaps things would have been easier if his father hadn't gone bankrupt. His father, James Royce, who was running a flour mill he leased from ecclesiastical commissioners, had to declare bankruptcy because the business failed. Consequently, the Royce family had to move to London, where the family survived on menial jobs while the kids remained out of school. In 1872, James Royce died. Following the death of his father, Royce at the young age of 9 started fending for himself. He started by selling newspapers and telegrams, going from door to door. By the time he turned 10, he had only attended 1 year of school. With little formal education and zero skill, the future looked bleak. Finally, luck smiled on Royce in 1879. When turned 16, his aunties took a look at him and decided it was high time he got some training. With the generous financial help he got from his kind aunt, he was able to secure a highly sought-after apprenticeship at the Great Northern Railway, GNR, workshops in Peterborough. During his training, it became clear that he was gifted in many areas. He had a natural ability for design and innate skills with tools and equipment. Before long, he had built a set of 3 miniature wheelbarrows he made in brass. This was intriguing to his trainers. They knew he was cut out for amazing inventions, but never could they have predicted that he would go on to design and make one of the world's most desired cars. Since Royce had no formal education, he was determined to make the most of his aunt's help by excelling and finishing his course of study. Sadly, his drive for self-advancement came to a sudden end when his benevolent aunt could no longer pay the annual tuition for his apprenticeship. Being a strong-willed person, he returned to London in 1881 to reunite with his family. This time, however, he did not return to his old job of selling newspapers. With his knowledge from the Institute, he sought employment at fledgling electrical lighting and power generating company. At the time, electricity was still novel, so his decision to forsake traditional engineering for the developing field of electricity was indeed a wise one. In addition to that, his poor educational background posed no barrier, as there was no governing or regulating body or professional institution at the time. For that reason, he had a free pass into the world of electrical inventions, as there was no special examination to be written. With his training and talent, working for the company, he made a good addition to their team and was earning a decent wage. This seemed to ease his life a bit. Remember, Royce had no means of going to school as a kid, so it was not at all unexpected that what he considered necessary when he started earning enough was basic education. He started attending evening classes to study mathematics and English. His dedication to self-improvement didn't go unnoticed. His company in 1882 sent him to work for its subsidiary in Lancashire. Not only did he get more exposure, he was also promoted. He became the first chief electrician, and part of his designation was being responsible for street and theater lighting in the city of Liverpool. Life was good, and he continued in his role for a while until the company went into receivership due to poor management, especially in its acquisition of patents. Subsequently, all their workers had to be relieved of their duties, including Royce, who was just 19 at the time. After the company ended, Royce decided he had had enough and wouldn't be kicked around anymore. What did he do? Instead of looking for another vacancy and applying for a job, he started his own business. In late 1884, using the £20 he had saved up as an employee of the defunct company, he began F. H. Royce and Company by entering a partnership with a friend called Ernest Claremont, who also came to the table with £50. You are by now curious and want to know exactly what the duo was doing or selling. They kickstarted their business by manufacturing domestic electric fittings in a workshop. They made dynamos and electric cranes and sold them to willing buyers. This time, however, the world had advanced and Royce was no longer illiterate, so the company was registered as a limited liability company. Now, due to expansion that birthed another company in Trafford Park, Manchester, the company was re-registered in 1899 as Royce Ltd with a public share flotation. By this time, though, the company had moved from making battery-powered doorbells and progressed to making heavy equipment like cranes and railway capstan. Business was booming, and once again, the future seemed bright. In 1901, a cog seemed to appear in the wheel of Royce. Although the business was flourishing, he was not, as he was always in and out of the hospital. This was due to many years of hard work and the impoverished childhood he had endured due to his family's status. After a while, he could no longer continue to work because his health was fast deteriorating and had to be placed on a compulsory home rest. Being a workaholic, the only way he could rest was if he traveled. With this, he embarked on a journey to South Africa. On the long trip, he laid his hands on a book, and therein, he read about automobiles. That was the moment he started developing an interest in cars. It turned out the book would change him and ultimately the world. Since he traveled and read the book on cars, he couldn't take his mind off the thought of producing his car from scratch. Upon his return to England, Royce bought his first car as he had fully recuperated. There weren't too many cars at the time, but he chose the Decauville because it was the best car available. However, being a sucker for perfection, he worked on it to his taste. To achieve this, he disassembled it and made it better. He practically followed his statement that says take the best available and make it better. Seeing that the car was perfect, he went on to build 3 2-cylinder 10 HP cars that were based on the Decauville layout. He believed this new direction could improve the financial standing of his company, and this only showed his tenacity and self-belief. His attention to detail in design and manufacture, supported by a continuous review of components after analysis, set the production template he would follow until his death. After the 3 first cars, he followed them by the 3-cylinder 15 HP, 4-cylinder 20 HP, and 6-cylinder 30 HP, each of which depicted considerable advances in automotive design. This small-scale business of making a few cars and finding buyers was going to be the life of Royce, but all that changed when he met Rolls. On the 4th of May 1904, Rolls and Royce met for the first time in Manchester. Charles Stewart Rolls was born in 1877 in London's affluent Berkeley Square of London. He was from a noble family of Lord and Lady Langattock, and he attended school in Eton. As a young lad, he loved to play with engines, and he got the nickname Dirty Rolls. It was no surprise that when he enrolled at Trinity College, Cambridge, he signed up to study mechanical engineering. He was so into cars that he was the first undergraduate student to own a car. By the time he graduated from the university, he had become an accomplished motorist. Rolls was in love with speed. He liked to try out anything that promised speed. Consequently, he broke the world land speed record in Dublin driving a 30-horsepower Moors at nearly 83 miles per hour. Sadly, however, his accomplishment was not acknowledged because the timing equipment was not approved by the governing body. He got so invested in his sporting activity that he set up a car dealership with Claude Johnson. It was one of the first in Britain. The dealership was called C.S. Rolls and Company. There, he and his friend imported and sold Peugeot cars and Minerva cars from France and Belgium respectively. A few minutes after meeting Royce, Rolls asked to see one of his cars, and Royce showed him his twin-cylinder 10 horsepower. Right on the spot, Rolls knew he had found what he had been looking for the moment he took the car for a driving test. Without mincing words, he told Royce that he could sell as many motor cars as he could produce only if he would build under the name Rolls-Royce. It didn't take Royce, who had been looking for an opportunity to get his masterpiece to as many luxury lovers as possible, a lot of time to agree. While Rolls and Royce were busy building and selling motor cars, former Rolls partner, Claude Johnson, stepped into the role of managing director and expanded the booming company's reputation. In 1906, which was just 2 years after the founding of Rolls-Royce, managing director Claude Johnson persuaded Royce to adopt a one-model policy. In response to that, Royce designed the 4050 HP Silver Ghost, the car that rightly earned the everlasting sobriquet the best car in the world. The Silver Ghost confirmed Royce's incredible intuition for using the right elements for components, long before scientific estimation could provide dependable data. Also, he worked out the properties of fluids altered with speed, so he designed the Silver Ghost's carburetor with 3 jets that came into play at different throttle openings, thereby eradicating flat spots. If there is a thing Royce was known for, it was perfection. He never got tired of improving his craft. Even when his health deteriorated, he continued to search for more ways to be on the top of his game. When it came to designing car components or aircraft engines, Royce didn't allow the demand for more products to get in the way of quality production. At one point, he devised a mantra that became popular among his crew. The mantra was rub out, alter, improve, refine. And it went on to unlock some of his greatest achievements in engineering. Under his supervision, the Buzzard Aero engine was built in 1927 with an initial output of 825 HP and was modified in just 4 years into the Schneider Trophy-winning R engine that, in its final form, was able to produce 2783 H.P. Also, his outline design for a V12 engine was not tampered with in the Phantom III of 1936, 3 years after his demise. Royce was an instinctive, intuitive engineer who firmly believed that if something looked right, it probably was right. Henry Royce's outstanding ability to analyze components with his naked eye proved foolproof time and time again. More than his ingenuity, Royce was a hard worker who continued to work despite his doctor's warnings. He took his quest for perfection almost too seriously, as he never gave up or designated his duty even in the face of hardship and adversity. He was highly driven, some might call it an obsession, but it turned out to pay off. He overcame many setbacks and misfortunes and applied his detailed engineer's eye, curious mind, and relentless work ethic to every aspect of his life. On his deathbed, Royce was still making designs for which he told his caregivers to deliver to his engineers. Such is how strong his ethos and legend were, and they still inform and inspire the company that bears his name to date, 160 years after his birth.